Ring-a-ring-a roses, pockets full of posies. Atishu! Atishu! We all fall down into the silence of Silent Shadows Lane. Ethan's sneakers crunched on the gravel as he skittered to a stop at the mouth of Silent Shadows Lane. The cool, dense fog hung like a veil over the world, turning the familiar into the unknown. His breath came out in wispy clouds, mingling with the mist that shrouded everything in mystery. He squinted at the silhouette of the old, abandoned house at the end of the street. It stood there, a brooding specter that clawed at the edges of his adventurous heart. Behind him, his little sister Lily trailed, her sketchpad clutched tightly under her arm. She had a knack for capturing moments like these when the fog turned their small town into a canvas of grays and silhouettes, ripe for her pencil to animate. Their parents, ensconced in their respective worlds of spreadsheets and phone calls, seldom noticed the siblings' comings and goings. The house's walls echoed with silence more often than laughter, leaving Ethan and Lily to fill their own voids with imagination and each other's company. The fog seemed to breathe around them, whispering secrets only it knew, as they wove through their day in a town that perpetually seemed caught between day and night. But as captivating as the fog was, it also served as a barrier, a soft wall that isolated them from everything outside their small cocoon on Silent Shadows Lane. Ethan had long learned to dismiss the whispers that seeped from his closet late at night as figments of his overactive imagination, a trait shared by all great explorers, he assured himself. Yet, there was an edge to the silence in their house that sometimes made him doubt. Lily had her own peculiarities. She drew what she saw or what she dreamed, and often she sketched the sick girl, a pale figure from her nightly visions who never smiled but always seemed to linger near. Their toys played hide-and-seek without them, a doll found sitting atop a bookshelf one morning, or a train set rearranged by unseen hands. Their parents never noticed. The children wondered, but were undeterred. It was over dinner, an affair punctuated by clinking cutlery rather than conversation, that Ethan voiced his desire to venture into the forbidden territory of the old house. "You stay away from there," their father said with an uncharacteristic sternness that sliced through the room's usual apathy. "It's unsafe," he added, eyes darting away to his cooling food. Lily piped up then, her voice soft but clear. "The sick girl likes my drawings," she said, tilting her head as if listening for approval from a friend no one else could see or hear. Her parents exchanged a glance, a silent conversation passing between them that ended with an uneasy shrug. That night, after Ethan had triple-checked his closet for unwanted whispers, and Lily had placed her latest drawing, a somber depiction of the sick girl, on her nightstand, they both found something new in their backyard. A rusty train toy sat forlornly on the grass, its whistle sounding a sorrowful note, even though no one was there to blow it. Ethan lay in bed, pondering that mournful sound until curiosity got the better of him. He tiptoed to his window and peered out into the night-shrouded garden, where fog curled around the train like grasping fingers. With a determined breath he couldn't quite feel in his chest, Ethan decided tomorrow he would solve the mystery of Silent Shadows Lane once and for all. But as sleep claimed him, his resolve was met with a fluttering curtain seen from across the street, the window of the old house that should have remained still in the lifeless night air. Chapter 2. Shadows Creep. Under a sky smothered by the thick gray embrace of an endless fog, Ethan tiptoed towards the house that everyone whispered about but never dared to approach. The boards groaned beneath his sneakers, protesting each secretive step he took around the perimeter of the abandoned house at the end of Silent Shadows Lane. It was as if the very earth itself was warning him to turn back, to flee to the safety of his own warm bed. But something invisible and compelling urged him onward. Meanwhile, Lily sat cross-legged on her bed, her sketchpad splayed open before her like a silent confidant. With a furrowed brow, she drew in earnest, her hand guided by images that danced behind her closed eyelids. In her dreams, she met a girl with sunken cheeks and hollow eyes that seemed to plead for attention. They never spoke in words, but their shared language of drawings wove a bond between reality and fantasy that Lily couldn't and didn't want to break. The world outside seemed muffled, as if Silent Shadows Lane was cupped in the hands of an invisible giant. Inside their home, sounds were strangely absent, giving the impression that they were submerged underwater. Ethan's parents had begun to notice too, the chill that clung to their clothes like invisible icicles, and the musty odor that no amount of cleaning could purge from the house. One afternoon, as Ethan returned from his reconnaissance of the old house, he found an old doll with matted hair and a porcelain face, cracked like a spiderweb, resting at the foot of the backyard oak tree. The doll's glassy eyes held his gaze with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine, and he could swear they flickered with a knowing glint when he wasn't quite looking. That night at dinner, amid clinking cutlery and the hum of the refrigerator, Ethan's parents spoke in hushed tones about whispers they'd heard in the dark. It was as if secrets were being shared just out of earshot. Ethan's fork paused midway to his mouth. His curiosity was a gnawing hunger inside him. Lily mentioned casually between bites of mashed potato that the sick girl wants us to play with her. The words hung in the air like cobwebs, out of place and disquieting. Ethan felt something akin to fear claw at his insides, but masqueraded it with a cough. Later, when shadows pooled in every corner of their home as night fell, Ethan found an old photograph in the attic. It depicted a family standing rigidly before a familiar house. Their house before it became abandoned. A young child's face was scratched out so violently that the paper had ripped. Ethan's fingers traced over the jagged lines as an unsettling thought wormed its way into his mind. Who wanted to erase this child from memory? That night, as Ethan lay awake listening to the silence that wasn't quite silent, he heard it. A giggle that crept from within the walls, soft but unmistakable. It was followed by another giggle mirroring it perfectly, a chilling chorus of two voices blending into one. Ethan turned slowly to face his sister lying asleep across the room. Her chest rose and fell rhythmically with slumber's deep embrace, except her lips moved ever so slightly, as if she were whispering secrets in her dreams. A tickle of dread crept up Ethan's spine as he realized with horror that the laughter echoing within their walls sounded eerily like Lily's own. Chapter 3. Whispers and Warnings. The air was heavy with silence, the kind that presses against your ears in the dead of night. In the hush, Ethan thought he could hear the faintest strains of a discordant melody, like a warning call from a forgotten time. Lily sat across from him at the breakfast table, her eyes distant, lost in thoughts he could no longer reach. The unease had settled into their home like an unwelcome guest. The arguments between their parents had grown louder, more desperate, as if trying to drown out the oddities that had infiltrated their lives. "It's just old pipes," their father would insist, but the clanging at night sounded more like whispers than water. Outside, the weather turned as quickly as a mood. A thunderstorm erupted out of nowhere, lashing at the windows with rain that fell like nails. Silent Shadows Lane was cut off from the world by sheets of water and a thick fog that clung greedily to every surface. Lightning cracked open the sky, and each flash illuminated the ancient house at the end of the street, making it appear as though it was breathing in time with the storm. During one such burst of light, Ethan saw her, the sick girl from Lily's drawings, standing pale and silent in their living room. Her shadowy figure seemed to ripple with the curtains as she whispered words lost to the thunder's growl. She pointed towards her weather-beaten home before dissolving into darkness. Their toys took on a life of their own. A jack-in-the-box sprung open without touch, its painted jester leering at them with hollow eyes. The rocking horse began to sway so violently that it seemed on the verge of galloping into some unseen night. Later that evening, Ethan cornered Lily in her room. "Lily," he pleaded, his voice thick with fear, "please, tell me what she said." But Lily turned away, clutching her sketch pad to her chest as if it could protect her from his questions. Blue lightning split the night again, and above them came a thump so loud it shook the pictures on the walls. They both jumped, and Lily's sketch pad tumbled to the floor, spilling her latest drawings like omens. Their parents, unnerved by the incessant storm and strange occurrences, sought answers through a seance. They sat around an old oak table, hands touching lightly on its polished surface. "Is anybody here with us?" their mother asked the empty room. But only silence replied, a dense silence that seemed to mock their fear. As night deepened its hold on Silent Shadows Lane, Lily rose from her bed and walked as though in a trance. She slipped silently down the stairs and out into the tempestuous night. Ethan found Lily's sketchpad laid open on the kitchen table. His eyes were drawn to a chilling new scene, a fragmented family portrait torn apart by unseen forces. Above them all loomed the sick girl, her hand clasped around another child, Lily's double. His heart pounding with dread, Ethan raced out into the storm after his sister. Every clap of thunder called out like an omen as he followed Lily's path towards that ominous house which seemed to swallow light and hope alike. The chapter closes on this haunting image, Lily's small figure shrouded by rain, drawn inexorably towards the decaying vestige of a home where laughter had long since died. And just behind her, pages fluttering in the wind from an abandoned sketchpad, the ghostly outline of a girl reaching out for companionship in an endless dance between dream and nightmare. The moon was a thin sliver in the night sky, barely casting light upon Silent Shadows Lane. The fog curled around Ethan's ankles as he stood at the threshold of the abandoned house, a gaping maw of darkness waiting to swallow him whole. His breaths came out in short, visible puffs, the cold air biting into his lungs. With a swallow that felt like swallowing sandpaper, he stepped across the broken doorway. Ethan, his mother's voice, frantic and shrill, sliced through the fog behind him. But Ethan's focus was on the inside. The walls of the house seemed to lean in towards him, whispering secrets of a time long gone. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of light that crept through boarded-up windows, and an odor, musty and sweet like rotting fruit, filled his nostrils. He could hear Lily's soft voice above him, humming a discordant tune that made the hair on his neck stand up. "Lily," he called out, his voice trembling, despite his efforts to sound brave. The staircase creaked in protest as he ascended, each step unsure whether to hold or send him plummeting into darkness. At the top, the hallway stretched before him, a never-ending tunnel with doors that offered more questions than answers. In one room, Ethan found toys he recognized from their own home, arranged in a circle as though waiting for a tea party to commence. A porcelain doll with a cracked face stared blankly at him, her empty eyes seeming to follow his every move. "Hide and seek," Lily's voice floated down to him, deceptively sweet. They liked to play hide and seek. Ethan stumbled into another room where an old bed sat against the wall. The ragged remnants of wallpaper clung desperately to the plaster, depicting faded scenes of pastoral bliss that clashed grotesquely with the reality of decay around him. He caught movement from the corner of his eye and turned sharply, only to find a mirror streaked with age. For a second, he saw a flash of a little girl with hollow cheeks and deep-set eyes that hungered for life. But he blinked, and she was gone, leaving Ethan to wonder if he had seen her at all. Lily? His call was more desperate now as he entered what must have been a playroom. A once vibrant mural was smeared across one wall, colors bleeding into one another to form shapes that twisted in the low light like shadows come alive. There she was. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by translucent figures that flickered like candle flames. They turned their heads towards Ethan as he entered, their faces shrouded by shadow, or perhaps something far worse. "They want to play one last game," Lily said without looking up from her sketchpad. "Hide and seek." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. This was wrong, all of it. "We need to go home," he pleaded, but Lily shook her head slowly. "You hide first." Before Ethan could argue further, an invisible force pushed him back into the hallway. He stumbled backward into a closet, pulling the door closed just as footsteps began to echo through the abandoned hallways. 1, 2, 3. He counted silently, pressing himself into the darkness, as if trying to become part of it. 4, 5, 6. His heart pounded against his ribs, so loud he feared it would give him away. 7, 8, 9. The footsteps grew closer, a slow approach that spoke volumes of patience gained over endless years. 10. Ethan peeked through a sliver in the closet door, just enough to see. The figure stopped outside his hiding place. The suspense stretched on like hours instead of seconds, until all fell silent, save for his own ragged breathing. The shadowy figure stood still as death itself, a dark silhouette that both was and wasn't Lily. Both, was and wasn't, the sick girl. Then, the world faded away into nothingness, leaving only darkness and Ethan's unspoken fears hanging in an endless void where answers should have been.
Thank you all for joining me on this eerie journey through The Girl Who Wasn't There. I hope the chills that crept up your spine were as thrilling for you as they were for the children ensnared by the pale observer's haunting lullaby. If the shadows of this tale linger in the corners of your mind, and the echoes of that ghostly song play softly in your ears, do not forget to like this chilling narration. Subscribe for more stories that will whisper to you in the dark and leave imprints in the dust of your dreams. Keep the candles burning, dear listeners, and remember, the next time you hear children laughing where no children should be, it might just be the girl who wasn't there calling out to you. Good night, sleep tight, and may your dreams be undisturbed by the unseen. Until our next ghostly tale.